Imagine stripping 50 years of rust off a car hood in less than 5 minutes, leaving a mirror-perfect finish without a single swirl mark. It sounds impossible, or at least it sounds like a job for a $1,000 industrial machine. But to understand how this level of restoration is actually within your reach for a fraction of the price, we need to go back to the moment you decided to tackle that restoration project in your garage. Stop believing the myth that you need expensive, high-end brand names to get professional results on metal and wood. You've been told that cheap tools ruin good materials, but today we are looking at a tool that is single-handedly changing that narrative. You're making a mistake if you think angle grinders are the only way to strip paint, and here is why that matters for your wallet and your sanity. You've probably walked past the Hercules Surface Conditioning Tool in the aisle and wondered if it's just a gimmick. What if I told you this strange-looking device is actually the secret weapon that professional fabricators have been trying to keep quiet? By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why this tool might just be the most versatile instrument you never knew you needed. Let's be honest about the traditional methods of surface preparation. If you are a DIY enthusiast, a car restorer, or a woodworker, you know the pain. You grab an angle grinder with a flap disc, and while it removes material fast, it also gouges the metal, leaving deep scratches that take hours to fix. Or maybe you use a wire wheel, which is essentially a grenade that throws sharp metal bristles at your face and chest while you work. And let's not even talk about orbital sanders. Sure, they are safe, but trying to strip heavy rust or thick paint with an orbital sander is like trying to mow a lawn with a pair of scissors. It works eventually, but you will age 10 years in the process. Enter the Hercules Surface Conditioning Tool. At first glance, it looks like a beefed-up angle grinder that went to the gym and forgot to do leg day. But the design is intentional. Unlike a grinder that spins a disc flat against the surface, creating circular swirl marks, this tool spins a drum linearly. This is the key difference. That linear rotation means you are pulling the grain of the metal or wood in one consistent direction. This is how stainless steel refrigerators get that brushed look. This is how restored classic car bumpers get that satin finish before the chrome. It creates a uniform, grain-matched surface that is almost impossible to achieve with circular tools. But does the Hercules version actually hold up? This is the budget-friendly option, competing against industrial giants like Metabo or Eastwood that cost 3 or 4 times as much. When you pick it up, the first thing you notice is the weight. It feels substantial. It doesn't feel like a toy. It has a rugged build, rubberized grips, and a variable speed dial that is actually useful. Here is the secret about that variable speed dial that most people overlook. When you are working with stainless steel, heat is your enemy. If you spin a grinder too fast, the metal heats up and discolors, turning that ugly blue and gold. The Hercules allows you to dial the RPMs way down, keeping the metal cool while the drum does the heavy lifting. Let's talk about the motor. It claims 9 amps of power. In the real world, what does that mean? It means you can lean into it. With cheaper tools, the moment you apply pressure, the motor bogs down and starts to whine. During our testing, you can put significant weight on the Hercules, and the electronic speed control kicks in to maintain torque. It just keeps eating through the rust. The versatility really shines when you start swapping out the drums. The tool usually comes with a sanding drum or a finishing drum, but the aftermarket support is where things get wild. You can attach a wire drum for aggressive rust removal, a nylon drum for gentle cleaning, or abrasive flaps for stripping paint. Changing them out takes seconds, thanks to a keyed shaft system that locks everything in tight. But wait, Because just when you think you have this tool figured out as a metalworking beast, the story changes. The most shocking capability of this tool isn't actually metal at all. You might think this is strictly for the auto body guys, but wait until you see what happens when you take this machine to a piece of reclaimed wood. If you have ever tried to clean up an old barn beam or a live edge slab, you know the struggle of preserving the character while removing the dirt and rot. An orbital sardine flattens the wood, removing the saw marks and the texture that makes old wood look cool. The Hercules, equipped with a nylon bristle drum, does something magical. It eats away the soft, rotted wood fibers, but leaves the hard grain ridges intact. It effectively sandblasts the wood without the sand. It creates that high-end, rustic 3D texture you see in expensive furniture stores, and it does it in seconds. So, is it perfect? No tool is perfect, and we need to address the elephant in the room, the dust. Because of the size of the drum and the speed of rotation, this thing throws debris. It has a guard, sure, but if you aren't wearing a respirator and goggles, you are going to taste whatever you are sanding for the next 3 days. The dust collection ports are there, but they are awkward to hook up to a standard shop vac without an adapter. Also, let's talk about the size. This is not a precision instrument. You aren't going to be getting into tight corners or detailing the dashboard of your car with this. It is a blunt instrument for big, flat, or slightly curved surfaces. If you try to use it on a complex shape, you're going to have a bad time. However, for the specific job it is designed for, the efficiency is terrifying. We took a piece of square tubing covered in mill scale, that hard grey coating that comes on fresh steel. Usually you have to grind that off before you can weld. The Hercules stripped a 4-foot section of steel to bare, shiny metal in under 60 seconds. That is time you are buying back. One thing you need to consider is the cost of consumables. The tool itself is affordable, often found on sale or with a coupon. But those drums? They wear out. Depending on how aggressive you are, a sanding drum might last you for one large project. The nylon drums last longer, but they aren't cheap. You need to factor the price of the drums into your project budget, or you might be in for a rude awakening when you hit the checkout counter. Let's circle back to the finishing capability on stainless steel, because this is where the return on investment really happens. If you build custom furniture, handrails, or kitchen backsplashes, achieving a number 4 brushed finish is the industry standard. Doing that by hand with a scouring pad takes unbelievable elbow grease. With the Hercules and a medium grit conditioning drum, you can take a scratched-up piece of stainless and make it look like it came out of a factory in Germany. A lot of people ask about the vibration. Cheaper tools often vibrate so badly that your hands go numb after 10 minutes. The Hercules is surprisingly balanced. It's heavy, which actually helps absorb some of that vibration, letting the weight of the tool do the work rather than your muscles. But make no mistake, it requires 2 hands. This is not a one-handed operation. There is a hidden benefit to this tool that car detailers use. With the right buffing drum and some polishing compound, you can use this for large-scale polishing. It's not its primary function, and you have to be careful not to burn the paint, but for correcting large, flat panels on a van or an RV, it covers ground way faster than a standard buffer. When you compare the Hercules to the Eastwood Contour SCT, the differences are marginal to the average user. The Eastwood might have slightly better fit and finish, maybe the motor runs a little cooler over an 8-hour shift. But for the weekend warrior or the small fabrication shop, the price gap is hard to ignore. You could buy the Hercules and 3 spare drums for the price of just the bare tool from the high-end competitors. Durability is always the question with Harbor Freight tools. Will it burn out in a month? Based on long-term usage reports from the community, the Hercules line is built differently than the old bargain bin tools. These are designed to compete. We are seeing these units last for years in light industrial settings. As long as you don't block the air vents and you blow out the dust regularly, it is a tank. Of course, if you are running a production line 24/7, maybe buy the industrial Metabo. But for the rest of us, it's hard to justify the extra cost. The Hercules sits in that sweet spot of good enough for pros, cheap enough for Joes. Think about the projects you've been putting off because the prep work seemed too daunting. That old trailer in the yard with the peeling paint, the wrought iron fence that is rusting away, the live edge table you wanted to build. This tool removes the friction from those projects. It turns the most hated part of the job, surface prep, into the most satisfying part. Watching the rust fly off and seeing clean metal underneath triggers something in the brain. It is instant gratification. It changes your perspective on what is salvageable. Suddenly, that rusty piece of scrap metal isn't trash, it's a blank canvas. So, is the Hercules Surface Conditioning Tool a must-have? If you work with metal or reclaimed wood, the answer is a resounding yes. It fills a gap between the angle grinder and the sander that nothing else can fill. It saves time, it produces a superior finish, and it does it without breaking the bank. We have covered the rust removal, the wood graining, the polishing, and the costs. We have looked at the good, the bad, and the dusty. But the real value of a tool is determined by how often you reach for it. And once you have this on your shelf, you will find yourself reaching for it more often than you expect. It transforms the workflow. You stop dreading the cleanup. You start looking for things to polish. It elevates the quality of your finished product, making your DIY work look like it was done by a shop with 10 times your budget. And in the end, isn't that what we are all looking for? As we wrap up this deep dive into the Hercules Surface Conditioning Tool, I want to hear from you about your specific workflow. Which application do you think provides the most value for a tool like this? Is it the ability to strip rust from metal instantly, or is it the artistic potential of bringing out the grain in old wood? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.